Newsmax TV coverage of Super Tuesday 2016 continues. I'm J.D. Hayworth, and there is a projection now from Minnesota, the lone state to go against Ronald Reagan in 1984 in favor of favorite son Walter Mondale tonight. Well, in the Republican column, Marco Rubio is projected the victor, Florida's junior senator, apparently picking up his first win in this Republican campaign season. So Marco Rubio, with over half of the precincts reporting, leads Ted Cruz by 9 points, and based on exit polling, various news agencies and cable networks project Marco Rubio the victor in Minnesota. Let's talk about that now with two gentlemen we have invited back. They joined us earlier this evening. First, coming to us from Akron, Ohio, is John Zogby, the great pollster, and from Northern Virginia, Shirley, the great political historian and Reagan biographer. John Zogby, earlier you were saying, based on polling, you thought that Rubio had a chance in Minnesota, and apparently he's pulled it off.
Yeah, it looks like he has. He needed to win somewhere, and Minnesota was the somewhere. He's now on life support, and for two reasons. This gives him enough breathing room to head into Florida now and hopefully go against the polls and win his own state. Secondly, given that big donor call that took place today, seeking the great alternative to Donald Trump, this could fuel maybe some conversation that maybe Marco Rubio, who was deemed by voters today to be the most electable of the candidates, even though they didn't necessarily vote for him, but this could possibly cause him to rise from the ashes yet again. He's already done that a couple of times in this campaign.
Well, there is the mythical Phoenix, but of course that's also a city in Arizona, which I used to represent in the Congress of the United States. I don't know of one down around Florida. But Shirley, let me turn to you. Going into the Thursday night debate, and part of this electability has to do with the telegenicity, the fact that Rubio is very telegenic. But it seems to me a debate in Detroit might actually play into Donald Trump's wheelhouse in terms of fair trade and economic nationalism. Your take on what we'll see Thursday night at the debate based on the results tonight?
Oh, I think that's absolutely right, JD. It plays perfectly into his arguments on trade, on manufacturing, on bringing jobs back to America. He'll talk about the decline of Detroit, the decline of manufacturing across the Midwest of America. I think also you will see a much different Donald Trump in that debate, as you saw in his press conference tonight. You know, it dawned on me as I was watching it, who holds press conferences at 9 o'clock at night? Well, presidents do, right? But Donald Trump was very canny in doing a press conference because he wanted people to start seeing him as a legitimate presidential contender. And you saw he was magnanimous, and he was congratulatory toward Ted Cruz. He kept up the fight, but you saw a much softer, much more reflective Donald Trump. And I think you'll see now the campaign go into a different phase, and he'll take that same tact in the debate on Thursday night. A
kinder, gentler Donald Trump. That sounds interesting, Craig. Let me also call in from Newsmax, Washington, Payton, the staff writer for The Federalist. And Bree, when we last got together in one of these discussions, you were pretty high on Marco Rubio, and it appears now that the junior senator from Florida has picked up his first victory. Is this the great shot in the arm that gives the establishment their hope to try and wrest the nomination away from Donald Trump?
Well, I think honestly it's good at this point if both Rubio and Cruz stay in the race, because I think with the both of them together, that's the best chance for the party to be able to beat Donald Trump, right? Like, I think right now it's really good that we're seeing Rubio really hit Trump in the stomach with these rhetorical punches that he's been lodging over the past couple of days. So I think that does really well for them. But I think also him staying in the race really keeps Cruz on his toes and keeps him humble and keeps him fighting. Well, so I think at this point it's really good if we see both of them stay in the race.
Speaking of Ted Cruz, John Zogby, that may have been the shortest two-man race declaration in political history, where it looked like Ted Cruz was bringing the argument tonight in his victory speech in Texas. Indeed, with those two victories in his home state, the Lone Star State, and neighboring Oklahoma, it appeared that Cruz had emerged as the alternative. Rhetorically and attitudinally, how does he maintain that, or does the Rubio victory in Minnesota just negate the scenario that Cruz was trying to set up?
Not only the Rubio victory in Minnesota, but also the Kasich strong showing in Vermont. You know, Kasich has his home state coming up in Ohio. But it's hard for me to see where Ted Cruz goes from here. He won his home state, he did it decisively. And he won Oklahoma, a neighboring state, and he won that decisively. But I'm just not sure where he goes from here. And I don't understand the logic of the argument that it's good to keep Donald Trump and to keep Ted Cruz on their toes by having all these candidates still in the race. One way or another, if there's going to be a way to stop Donald Trump, it's going to have to be one candidate going against Donald Trump. If there's going to be an alternative to Donald Trump, then at what point do opposition to Trump Republicans get to make their one choice? Right now, this was still, by any account, a big night for Mr. Trump. Let's face it.
Well, Bree, since John was calling into question your scenario there, you want to elaborate on why it's good for the Republican Party to still have a race with a lot of candidates here?
Sure. Well, I think it's obvious that the Republican Party hasn't really decided which candidate they really want to coalesce around, right? Like, obviously, this was a really good night for Donald Trump, but I think we have to look at his lead right now. And right now he's leading between 75 and 100 delegates over Cruz, which is obviously still a big lead, but it's not as big as a lot of people thought it was going to be going into the race. So I think, you know, where we go from here is we can kind of look at that and see that, hey, maybe everyone isn't all excited about Trump like we all think that he is, right? And I think going forward, looking at the states that are coming up, these like Kansas and whatnot, these are really tight, low turnout caucus states that tend to be a lot more conservative and tend to favor candidates like Ted Cruz. So I think the Republican Party is there's still a whole lot of ball game, and I think that they're going to have to figure out which candidate they want to coalesce around. So I think for now, it's good to keep candidates like Cruz and like Rubio in the race. But I think the lower tier candidates, especially Ben Carson in particular, who hasn't won any states tonight, I think after tonight, it's time for him to drop out.
Craig, Shirley, since you are there in Northern Virginia and you were here with us earlier tonight, I believe we were discussing the subject. It's a chance for me to go back and revise and extend some remarks. We had visited with the chairman of the Virginia Republican Party, Chairman Whitbeck, and apparently he thought we read too much into his closing statement as we were up against the clock. He wanted to make sure we understood that it was his intention to lead a delegation to the convention to pick the strongest candidate. He said he was not advocating a brokered convention, but he wants to see the party pick a strongest candidate. Of course, you know, there does seem to be a lot of buzz that a lot of folks think that they'd like to see a brokered convention, an open convention, whatever else, and the correction and the elaboration from the chairman notwithstanding. Do you think that desire is heightened tonight by the Rubio win in Minnesota?
No, I don't. That cracking sound you're hearing emanating from Washington is the sound of the establishment starting to fall apart. If the establishment is smart, they're going to start reaching out to Donald Trump. And if he's smart, he's going to start reaching out to them. And you saw that tonight in his press conference where he said nice things about Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and other establishment figures. A brokered convention would probably be the worst thing that could happen right now to the party, because you don't think Donald Trump's going to, if he's close to the nomination, he goes to Cleveland, he's denied the nomination, he's not going to take it lying down. He's going to walk away, he's going to run third party, he's going to take half the party with him, and he's going to deliver the election to Hillary Clinton. The best thing they can do right now, look, this still has a long way to go. He's only got, one third of the delegates needed for nomination. We still got Ohio, we still got Florida, we still got other caucus states. But he is the front runner. And the establishment had better understand that he is creating, as we speak, a new Republican Party, much like Ronald Reagan did in 1980. Now, I'm not comparing individuals, but I am comparing dynamics. There are a lot of new people who are coming into the process who weren't there 4 years ago, and the Republican Party elders better pay attention to that.
John Zogby, let me turn to you because we're understanding that my old colleague in the Congress, David McIntosh, who's now over at the Club for Growth, the Club for Growth is saying that its hard-hitting ads against Donald Trump made the difference. Now, the last time I checked, Club for Growth had only spent a couple of $1 million. I can tell you from personal experience that I had $30 million spent against me in a race for the U.S. Senate in a primary race in one state. Is the Club for Growth crowing about something that's, could you not hear me, John? Apparently.
No, I lost you.
Okay,
there.
Well, come back. Bree, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
I have your question.
Well, I wonder about this. Did the Club for Growth ads really help make the difference to find a weakness and exploit against Donald Trump?
I think if there's one lesson to be learned from 2016, we can learn that money doesn't matter, right? So looking at the Democratic race, I think we can definitely take that lesson as a big lesson away from what's going on with Bernie Sanders. And we can see that, you know, he hasn't taken much or any help from big money and super PACs or anything like that. And he's been doing really well to the point where it looks like Bernie Sanders, though he may not get the nomination, certainly influenced the Democratic Party in a very big way. So I think, no, what they did probably didn't influence the race all that much, but I think that big money and PACs and organizations like that just aren't really going to do all that much going forward.
What about a John Zogby? I think we may have reestablished contact. The notion that the ads and that concerted spending makes a difference, like the Club for Growth is claiming its attack ads against Trump.
Let's put that under the column, nice try, Club for Growth. I'm in total agreement with Bree on that one. You're either for Trump or against Trump, and negative ads against Trump in many ways actually help him even more. They made a dent against Trump tonight. How and where? Texas? That was Ted Cruz's state. Oklahoma? That was going to be possibly for Ted Cruz too. Minnesota? We kind of felt that Marco was going to do well there. Possibly Virginia, but I doubt it. I doubt it in Virginia as well. Marco was helped in Virginia by the north eastern suburbs of Washington, D.C., which are really becoming his turf, those metro college-educated areas. So, no, I don't think so at all.
Only a couple of minutes remain. Craig Shirley, I want your thoughts about this. Roger Stone was with us a bit earlier, and he said that the scenario exists that he believes that Mitt Romney may get back in this thing. Of course, this was before we saw the Rubio victory in Minnesota, and we don't want to turn Minnesota into Mount Everest, but is the Minnesota win enough to dissuade Romney and others from trying to get in this fight at this late date? We've got about a minute and a half left.
I remember in 1980, as Reagan was headed toward the nomination, the party elders and the establishment were in full-throated panic. And they went to Gerald Ford, and Henry Kissinger went to Gerald Ford, and Dick Cheney and others, and they said, "You got to get back in the race. You got to get back in the race." And Reagan on the road was practically begging Gerald Ford to get back in the race because he knew it would divide whatever remained of the anti-Reagan vote. I think that if Romney got in, it would simply divide up the anti-Trump vote and dilute the establishment even further. So if Donald Trump is praying tonight and he lights a candle, it'd be for Mitt Romney to get in the race because he's the perfect foil. Donald Trump has defined himself by defining his opponent. First it was Jeb Bush, and then it was Marco Rubio. And if he gets in against Romney gets in, then that further energizes Trump to define himself by defining Mitt Romney. So, from Trump's standpoint, he's going to hope that Mitt Romney jumps in.
Craig Shirley in Northern Virginia and John Zogby tonight in Akron, Ohio. Gentlemen, we thank you for joining us earlier and joining us somewhat later here in our Super Tuesday coverage. Thanks so much for your insights and analysis. And Bree Payton, we kind of like having you around, so we're going to ask you to hang in here for a few more minutes. Not that we don't like John and Craig, we just have to thank them and move along because we're going to get some other points of view. Again, our Super Tuesday coverage continues here on Newsmax TV. We'll monitor the numbers in Vermont. Could John Kasich pull a surprise? And what may happen out in Alaska? That and more to talk about as our coverage continues.